Tea breakfast. Journalists in Nigeria are increasingly becoming exposed to attacks from all angles, especially from top government officials and security agencies.
A report by Amnesty International tagged Endangered Voices, attack on freedom of expression in Nigeria, disclosed that 19 journalists have been arrested and detained illegally by security agencies in 2019 for playing their roles as the people's watchdog. Of all these cases, 2 have dominated the media.
The arrest and detention of the publisher of Sahara Reporters and former presidential candidate Omoyele Sowore by the DSS. The arrest and detention of journalist and activist Agba Jalingo by the police over an article he published seeking the whereabouts of 500 million naira approved and released for floating a microfinance bank in Cross River State. Joining us now is the CEO of CKN News, Chris Kehinde Nwandu. Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
All right, let's begin with you. You have had an experience of being what some persons would tag gagged from speaking something you believed was the truth. Quickly relive to us your experience.
Oh, well, my experience was sometime in 2015, thereabout, where I was arrested for posting or publishing a story that was termed fake, as it were. And I was picked up and charged to court and remanded in prison for about 15 days at Ikoyi prison. For several days, the presiding judge refused to grant me bail under flimsy excuses and the rest of them. But the part of it was that I was charged under the cybercrime law, which was then some of us didn't even know was in existence, because why my lawyers were looking at libel and sedition and the rest of them. But I was charged under the cybercrime law, which was then signed by the outgoing president of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan. It was one of those over 100 laws that he signed at the wee hours of his living distance. So it was criminalized, and I was the guinea pig used to test run that. And but eventually, I think good reason prevailed, and then the charges were dropped, and I was there. But I was in prison for about 15 days. Yes.
Okay. In your experience now, since then we have seen that journalists have been arrested for posting or writing stories that are termed fake or not too good for people in power. So in these situations, not just in Nigeria, but other parts of the country as well and other parts of the world, in this situation, what does this do to the profession? It
endangers our profession because freedom of speech, and for the journalists, our freedom is enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, where we are given absolute liberty to be able to write, in as much as you know that whatever you're publishing is right and correct. And where there is any level of mistake here and there, you are allowed to restrict and apologize. It's part of the profession. And which is why even the national newspapers, you see that every other day you'll be seeing them say, oh, we made mistakes here, okay, we're sorry, this is the right story. That is how it was going. But the way they are going about it now is very, very dangerous, that journalists ordinarily are being charged for treason. Take for example the issue of Jalingo. Let's look at Jalingo just because he asked for a probe into the release of certain funds. Then the Cross River State governor and his assistants got him arrested, picked up and charged for treason. And he saw the way he's been paraded, being handcuffed under inhuman conditions, and has not been granted bail. That is the dangerous trend we are facing. There will also be instances where in certain parts of the country, some journalists some have even disappeared. You are talking of being arrested, and some have disappeared. I know of 1 or 2 journalists for now that have not been traced in certain parts of the country.
How much of a threat does this pose to our democracy? Because the journalism or the media is supposed to be the fourth estate of the realm, and has a role to play in even asking questions from our leaders.
Once the press get oppressed under a democratic system, then that's the end of the society, because that is the voice of the people. That is the alternative voice that most people don't have, that can speak for them. So a situation where, and when that starts, that is dictatorship. Because the press is only means by which people express themselves. Although the advent of social media has been able to liberalize that and the rest of them. But come to realize that the freedom of speech is enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and people should be allowed to be able to act a very reasonable, and where they're found to have overstepped their bounds and the rest of them, there are avenues, there are laws that guide against such, where they can be asked to prove their points. But presently, most Nigerian journalists they are finding it difficult to be able to express. If you see what even the editorials are being monitored. Not only that, it's not only even NBC, even on broadcast stations, NBC is coming out with certain quotes. Just recently, the fine was raised from 500,000 to 5 million for any news item that you see. Why should we do that? Are we trying to say that people should be able to express themselves? As I said, there are already enabling laws that guide against that. If there's anything to the contrary, then there are reasons for us to be able to, I think there's need for us to start looking at this critically for now.
Chris Kende, thank you for your time on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're watching TVC Breakfast. Journalists in Nigeria are increasingly becoming exposed to attacks from all angles, especially from top government officials and security agencies.
A report by Amnesty International tagged Endangered Voices, attack on freedom of expression in Nigeria, disclosed that 19 journalists have been arrested and detained illegally by security operatives in 2019 for playing their roles as the people's watchdog. Of all of these cases, 2 have dominated the media.
The arrest and detention of the publisher of Sahara Reporters and former presidential candidate Omoyele Sowore by the DSS. The arrest and detention of journalist and activist Agba Jalingo by the police over an article he published seeking the whereabouts of 500 million naira approved and released for floating a microfinance bank in Cross River State. Joining us now is the CEO of CKN News, Chris Kende Nwandu. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you very much.
Now, under national and international law, Nigeria has an obligation to respect, protect, promote, and fulfill the rights to freedom of expression and media freedom. But what we see, it doesn't seem to be it. We know that during the military era, we had issues such as this. Some journalists had to go on exile, so to speak. But then one wonders, how did we even get to this point in the democracy?
Thank you, Vero. You're already speaking like a lawyer.
A lawyer.
Maybe I should go and study law.
Study law like me. Anyway, thank you very much once again. Well, you rightly put, there are international conventions on the right to freedom of speech, more so when it comes to the freedom of the press, which is rightly enshrined in the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. So journalists are given the liberty to be able to write, publish, and express themselves on issues of national importance and the rest of them. Most don't also forget that the journalism profession, we are looked at as the fourth estate of the realm, because after the executive, legislature, and the judiciary, the fourth arm is the media.
And we also serve as a watchdog.
We are this watchdog. We are supposed to be the watchdog. But when you decide to now kill the dog that watches over you, then you are prone to all sorts of attacks. And that is what we are fighting against presently. As rightly said, 19, by your prologue, it stated 19 journalists were illegally. That is the underlining word, illegally. Because you cannot arrest a journalist for publishing what he thinks is right or what is the truth. Even if for any reason he published whatever is not true, he is given the opportunity to right the wrongs.
There are other means of addressing
such issues.
Yeah.
There are so many other issues.
There's
if
libel,
you can libel,
there's
there's defamation. Even a bit further is the cybercrime law that was passing to law and signed by former President Goodluck Jonathan in 2015. But what we are seeing now is a situation where those in authority, those in power, those in the executive arm, not the legislatures, not the judiciary, although to some extent aided by the judiciary, because most often than not, they can only arrest you. But it is within the judiciary to be able to declare that you should be let go or grantable and the rest of them, which we are not seeing now. True. Okay, so it's most often than not seen that the executive is stiffening
but the judiciary is supposed to be the last hope of the common man.
That is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So if you cannot get justice within that ambit, then it becomes a problem. Okay. Take, for example, what is happening. Look at the issue of Agbajalingo, the one that has been. What did he say? What did he write? The guy said that I noticed some discrepancies in the 500 million naira used to set up a microfinance system. Can you just give us a breakdown and the rest of them? And for that, he was arrested, not charged for cybercrime, not charged for sedition, not charged for labor, for treason. That is unprecedented. Those are the kind of things that we saw within the military regime, military era and junta. That is what is happening. Are you charging a journalist for just asking certain questions for treason? How is that reasonable? What constitutes, by definition, what constitutes treason?
But you know, in all of this now, we've had people like Ahmed Salkida who brought to light the issues in the northeast, the Boko Haram insurgency, the money that has been paid to the military, and nothing has been done about hardware and the likes. And we had in the US, Jamal Khashoggi. Now we realize that at every point, we still see that journalists they still do the profession, still work as though nothing has happened. Why do we have such situation? You have been arrested, like you said earlier, but you're still in the profession. You're still doing the job.
Not being discouraged.
You're not being discouraged. Why do you have that mindset?
Because one, we owe it a point of duty. That is what I've chosen to do. It's a profession that I like, I love. It's a profession that gives me the liberty to mirror the society. It is a profession that gives me the opportunity to contribute to humanity. It is a profession that allows me to be able to say the way it is, irrespective of who's also God. And that is why most often than not, we are seen as the mirror of the society. There are certain things that, without the media profession, there will be in total chaos because the executive or those in government will just do.
Isn't that where we're headed at this point?
That is what I'm saying. That is where we're headed. What they are trying to do now is to stiffen the only little opposition, quote and unquote. I'm not using the word opposition in the right, but I'm saying if things goes wrong, the people don't have the opportunity to be able to vent their, their anguish. They are not ready. They don't have the opportunity to be able to say what they want to say and rest of them. Right. It becomes a problem.
Can the media be stifled?
And the media can never be stifled. They can only try, but they can never stifle the media.
We have to leave it at this point. Chris Kende-Nwandu, thank you for your time on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you very much for having me.
In Nigeria are increasingly becoming exposed to attacks from all angles, especially from top government officials and security agencies.
A report by Amnesty International tagged Endangered Voices attack on freedom of expression in Nigeria disclosed that 19 journalists have been arrested and detained illegally by security operatives in 2019 for playing their roles as the people's watchdog.
Of all these cases, 2 have dominated the media: the arrest and detention of the publisher of Sahara Reporters and former presidential candidate Omoyele Sowore by the DSS, the arrest and detention of journalist and activist Agbajalingo by the police over an article he published seeking the whereabouts of 500 million naira approved and released for floating a microfinance bank in Cross River State.
All right, joining us now is the CEO of CKN News, Chris Kende-Nwandu. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
You're a seasoned journalist yourself.
Thank you.
And you have seen it all and written about a lot of these issues in the profession. Now, how does this place us in the Committee of Nations?
It places us in bad light. At the turn of democracy in 1999, we thought that we are leaving Egypt for the promised land. But it's so obvious that we are even yet to cross the Red Sea, as it were. At a point, we thought that it was a huru, and that journalists will be able to, Nigerian journalists will be able to practice their trade without necessary harassment, molestations, and the likes. Don't forget, before the advent of the turn in 1999 during the military junta, we had so many things to contend with. Most of those in government presently we are not in the forefront for democracy. The journalists will play very, very vital role to the return of democracy.
Yeah.
Some of us lost our lives, some of our members lost their lives, some disappeared, some went on exile. I remember my big boss, my brother, my big boss, Dele Mamadou, has to pass through the, we had to pass through the blood and the rest of them.
All of this, one wonders
So
if we are really growing as a democracy. 20 years is what we are celebrating, and issues just as this, that is meant to entrench or deepen democracy in the country, is being threatened. It's
so unfortunate that we've turned the endangered species.
Are we really growing?
For us, in the journalistic profession, yes, in terms of professionalism, we are. The advent of social media and rest of them has also enhanced that in terms of numerical strength, broadcasting stations, radio stations, newspaper houses, and the rest of them. Yes, in terms of training, yes, we are more enhanced, more. But all those advancements we've had so far can be stiffened with what is happening, with the arrest and the detention of journalists and members. And where it's even hurting me the more is that even the organization that's supposed to protect us are not doing much. And I'm talking about the Nigerian Union of Journalists. I'm calling out my friend, my personal friend, Chris, who's the president of NUJ. And other like the NGE and the rest of them.
What can they actually do
to
protect journalists?
They're supposed to be our shield, okay? As a union, they're supposed to speak for us. That is why NUJ is a pressure group. Just like you just in the Labour have just negotiated this. We have not even started talking of welfare of journalists, because when you're talking of intimidation, that the welfare of journalists is also part of this. There have been instances where journalists have been,
do they really understand that they are pressure groups, that they should champion
that is what I'm saying.
19.
That is what I'm saying. If we have 19, a whopping 19 journalists being harassed under detention, those are the known ones. You can be rest assured that so many others that must have been picked here and there that don't even know, that we don't even know about. Those are the ones that we know. There have been pockets of others that must have been picked. So it might be even more than 19. And we're talking of 2019 Nigeria, not 1985, you know. So it is very, very, very disturbing. And if the trend is not checked, then we're into trouble.
Where do we begin to check this trend? Because we should also look at the fact that the advent of social media has also complicated issues, where you see, we can't deny the fact that there has been fake news in circulation. There has to be a balance.
There should be a balance. Also, as the president of the Guild of Professional Bloggers of Nigeria, of which I'm the president, I know that we on our part have been trying to do a lot in trying to stem this tide. But the problem we have is that it's very, very difficult to be able to check what goes out in social media. It's practically everybody is a journalist now. You understand?
Because you have a social media account.
Because you have a social media account, everybody just pick up and post on that. But that does not stop us from knowing the original from the fake. Okay? What we are looking at now as these ones are seasoned journalists who are trained in the art of reporting, who are trained in the art of writing, so if there are enabling laws, and that is what is disturbing me. We have laws that guys are if there's anything that any journalist have done or published that is not in tandem with what he is a calling, then there are areas of avenues for redressing that issue, rather than just picking them up. And it's coming now, practically everybody is in charge for treason. And we have to define what constitutes treason. And that is very, very key. And that is where we're expecting the NUJ, NGE, and the rest of them to come in and be able to streamline this and let us know what is happening.
All right, sir. Chris Kende Nwandu, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.